Good morning. Welcome. My life is a spark of light in an endless sea of energy. I know everywhere I go that there is a flow going on in me. I see my reality with transparency, and the truth is free. Walk on with a heart that's strong and a mind in song, for we have to sing. I am the universe, experiencing life. I am the universe, expressing life in life. I feel from a place that's real. I intend to heal through the suffering. No stress, 'cause the best is next. No future or past, now is expanding. Take flight through the night in light. Use your bright insight. Your love is waiting. Live life with a fearless heart. Integrate the dark, consciousness raising. I am the universe, experiencing life. I am the universe, expressing life in life. Life. Light, be the light. Please.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to First Unity Spiritual Campus. And this was Reverend Emmanuel Yernan. Thank you for providing our opening song. And welcome to the most vibrant community that you will ever find. I'm not biased. So I'm Aileen Curtin, the Associate Minister. I'm honored to serve with Reverend John Scott, our Senior Minister, who is here and along with all of you. And I'd like to invite our prayer chaplains who are with us here today to come up beside me. And I'm delighted to announce this is Chaplain Lily Lightbridge, this is Chaplain Bridie Maisie, and they completed their chaplain training with me this week. And we are looking forward to their formal induction. We have chosen a date in February, so stay tuned for that. So they are here to support you in prayer, to hold sacred space with you. And if anybody is new to First Unity, just know that after service, if you go out the door to the left, Lily or Bridie will be available to tell you a little bit more about First Unity and also to share a very special gift with you. Thank you both. And if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phone and come into this sacred space where we collectively get together with those of you online and those of us here in the sanctuary as we create this space for prayer, for healing. So now I'm going to move over to the podium and I'm going to open up the sacred centering time. So as many of you are already aware, tomorrow is when we honor the life and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. So I chose this reading today to honor his legacy and to honor all of the dreams of our ancestors who've come before us. And this is from Kathleen McTeague, and she says this: "They are with us still. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us. It is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to honor and to name the power of hard lives well lived, lives like Reverend Martin Luther King. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be. They are with us still. They have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living. Jesus said, "What things soever you desire, when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you shall have them." Imagination is the language of my soul. As I now move into my quiet space, my time to pray, to meditate, just taking a moment to honor this body temple that sometimes seems so limited, but knowing that who we are is beyond this body. Beginning now to connect to your breath and breathing. Maybe noticing how the slow inhale breath comes right from the toes or the root chakra, and maybe drawing it all the way up to the top of your head. And then slowly exhaling, releasing through your mouth, through your nose. Keep on going here, connecting to the spirit, the essence of who you are at the back of the breath. Taking another inhale breath here. filling up, expanding, maybe holding at the top. And as you exhale, letting go and letting God. Keep going here, just noticing how the breath breathes you. Filling up with light, with love, with peace, with joy. And exhaling doubts, fears, worries, releasing all burdens, knowing that all things are possible. Scanning your own body here now, as you become aware of any tension, tightness that you might be holding on to. Send the exhale breath there. Maybe allowing a gentle sigh as you feel the ease that you are not alone, that we are all connected in the spiritual, this invisible world, and that we can do all things through this consciousness that strengthens us. Keep following your breath. Noticing the relaxed heaviness that is now coming over your whole body here. You're coming inside to the sanctuary, the safety, the security, where everything is possible. On your next inhale breath now, I invite you, if you choose, to come to your spiritual eye, the space between your eyebrows, the screen of your imagination, where all things are possible, where dreams are created, and maybe connecting to all of our loved ones who have come before us as we carry their dreams forward. And so resting here on the screen of your third eye, your mind, maybe connecting here now as you connect to the imagination that is the language of your soul, your spirit. Maybe you have dreams that you would like to visualize here, feel them. So I'm going to invite you to stay here on the screen of your mind in silence without my words. Maybe drop to your heart space if you prefer to stay there. So this is your time without my words to connect to who you are in divinity. If you need a mantra here, maybe using the following. I know my life is divinely guided. I know that my imagination is the language of my soul. Imagination is the language of my soul. I ignite my imagination now, seeing and feeling my dreams already fulfilled. I ignite my imagination now, seeing and feeling my dreams already fulfilled. I feel my prayers are answered. I know my life is divinely guided as I fulfill my life's purpose. Just filling yourself up here with this joy, this peace, feeling yourself as limitless, deathless divinity. And slowly now, as you begin to bring awareness back to your body, this place, maybe slowly wiggling your fingers, your toes, just bringing some movement back into your body. And feel free to stretch if you have the space, maybe drawing your arms up over your head, and slowly bringing yourself back as you center here, maybe closing with your hands together in Anjali Mudra, or resting however is most comfortable for you. And then slowly beginning to maybe open up your eyes as you begin to notice maybe that joy, that essence that always comes when we take this meditated break. And until we meet each other again, I'd like to leave you with these words of wisdom, one of my favorites from Dr. Martin Luther King. And he said this: "If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, 'Here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well.'" Namaste.
Good morning. There we go. Hi. Everybody smile at me. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., born in Georgia, raised in the Deep South, was a Morehouse man. Dean Carter, who is the dean of the theological side of Morehouse, is a friend. Came to know him through Bishop Carlton Pearson, and carries on the legacy of much of what Dr. King taught and was about. And just a few months after Bishop Pearson transitioned, his portrait was put in the portrait of preachers in the Martin Luther King wing of the Morehouse Theological Seminary. And Dr. King was raised in the Deep South, as I mentioned a moment ago. He went to Morehouse for his college career, and then his undergrad was in Boston. And his doctoral work was in Boston. And then he went on to Montgomery, Alabama to be a pastor in Montgomery. And a little while after he arrived in Montgomery was when Rosa Parks said, "I'm not giving up my seat on a bus for the white guy or any other person." And she was arrested. And because of that arrest, it caused unrest that had already been stirring to be pressed to the surface. And of course, then Dr. King became known as really the voice of social justice in terms of equality, voting rights, and other rights for African American people and black and brown people. Dr. King was a reverend and a Christian, but he went on to study with people like Thich Nhat Hanh and Mahatma Gandhi. And it's interesting because they were not from the Christian traditions. Gandhi was from the Hindu tradition, and Thich Nhat Hanh, of course, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. And those two individuals greatly influenced his life. In fact, Dr. King was known to say that those two individuals, besides Jesus Christ, that those two individuals had been the greatest influence on his life. And he began to really have a broader understanding of spirituality. So he was not just a Christian reverend, he was really an expanded soul. And I wanted to share for just a few moments with you some of his quotes that really, to me, ring out as higher consciousness. We could actually do a whole series of sermons from the quotes that Dr. King had, but I'll share just a few with you this morning that have really inspired me throughout this last week. This time of year, I revisit my admiration for Dr. King, and I'm grateful for the influence that he has had, not just in the United States, but in the entire world and in my personal world. One of the ones that I like that came up really first for me this time was, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." And what I get out of that for me personally, and I sat with these quotes this week in my personal time of meditation, was, when life squeezes you, what comes out is what's in you. In other words, when the pressure is on, it pushes to the forefront what is in there. Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say it this way. He said this to a classroom of students. He said, "When you squeeze an orange, what comes out of it?" And they responded, "Juice." He said, "Okay, what kind of juice?" And they said, "Orange juice." And he said, "Are you sure it's not lemon juice?" And one of the kids said, "No, it's orange juice." And he said, "Well, why is that?" And the kid just kind of shrugged, and he said, because that's what's in it. It's an orange. It has become that, has developed that, and that's what's in it. When life squeezes you. So the ultimate measure of a human being, of a person, is not how we stand in moments where everything's fine, where everything's going our way, but how are we responding, how are we showing up when things aren't going necessarily our way. We wouldn't have chosen that from the menu. And how many of you have figured out in the morning, there's no menu for your day that rolls out where God goes, hey, pick chicken or steak. And then on that day, whatever your taste is, you could pick it. No. You get surprised every day. And how many of you have been surprised every day since 2025 started? I have. And I've been surprised by my own reactions to things as well, reminding me of the power that I have to be responsible in every moment. How am I and who am I when I'm under pressure? That's really, and who am I and how am I with the people that I live with? Because that is the consistent practice. Those are the ones who can be the consistent mirror for us. The people that we live with know us the best. Because we tend to brush our teeth and comb our hair, and for me at this stage in my life, I don't really have to comb it. I just kind of like do this and go with it. But we tend to do all of the things to put on the facade, not that it's a bad thing, and be on our best behavior for those that we don't know that well. But the people that we live with really become the barometer for our growth. And if the people that you're living with are noticing your growth, that's a good thing, because they are consistently with you. Another one, and this is a very popular one, was darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. I love this sentiment, and I have adapted this for me personally. I don't know that we're here to drive out darkness. I think sometimes we curse the darkness when we should just simply integrate it into our life as just as much a part of our life as the light is. When we're cursing one part of it, we're not allowing what's there in the beauty of it to really come forward in our life. But the sentiment here is that you're not going to fix a problem with the same consciousness that created the problem. In other words, there needs to be a transcending so that I can actually transform. If we transcend the circumstance, we will begin to transform it or transmute it into what we would like for it to be. So this is an empowering thing. And Einstein was the one who said you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it. In other words, if you want to work on something that is a lower vibration, it has to be done from a higher vibrational standpoint. And I would go further to say that the higher vibration is going to come in the not judging what is. You know the serenity prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are some things we're not supposed to work on. We simply surrender. Because there's some things I cannot fix. I've said to you before, Alan Watts used to be the one who said, I think it's so interesting that so many people say they're working on themselves, but if you're the one who needs the work, then how do you think you're going to do the work in perfection? Because you're the one who needs to be fixed. So how are you going to fix it? There's a certain level of surrendering to what is, and when we surrender to what is, then it'll be pointed out for us in clarity whether or not it needs to be fixed or it was just our perception that needed to be fixed. Because most of the time the things we badge as bad or we dub as bad were just, I say sometimes, they weren't necessarily bad, we just didn't like it. Sometimes the medication the ego doesn't care for. And certainly the meditation, the ego doesn't care for, because the ego doesn't want you to meditate. The ego would rather you medicate. Clip the check engine light. Don't actually work with what is. So he said also, it is an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. It's an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. This to me speaks to unconditional love. Love for love's sake. Not for anything in return. I mean, just imagine a world that started to adopt this belief, this deep belief that I'm here to love just because that's the way it should be, that love just is, and not to expect anything from you in return. The expectations are the ego. The ego wants credit for what it does. Love wants to just make the world a better place. Love just wants to give compassionately. The reason that the universe is eternal because it's always giving. And even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Look what can happen with a love like that. You can light up the whole sky. That's a Rumi quote. Or a Hafiz quote. Can I become that kind of emanation of love? And this is what it means, I think. It's an overflowing love that seeks nothing in return. No attention, no payment, no credit, no acknowledgement. Just loving for love's sake. I used to have adopted this saying because when we were younger, we would say, be good because God wants you to be. And now I have a saying, I live in goodness for goodness sake. Because good is God extended. G-O-O-D is just an extra O. Oh, goodness is just God extended. And so when I'm seeing good in the world and the goodness in the world, it's because God is actually coming forward. That is the expression of God in the world. And what a way to live our life, completely abandoning all of our judgments. Does it happen with ease? No. There is a bit of a struggle with the ego because the ego needs to be affirmed and confirmed, needs to be acknowledged, needs to have credit. As I've said to you before, if you live for the credit of others around you, you're always going to pay their interest, whatever they choose to charge. But if you live on the cash of the endless supply of the universe within you, you don't have to pay the debts of the creditors. That's an incredible way to live your life. It's a fantastic way to live your life. In that loving awareness, that beauty. So Dr. King, what a powerful, powerful being. And we say to him, thank you for being willing to carry this on, even unto death. Even unto death. Thank you, Dr. King, for your service in our world. We've been talking about thriving in 2025, and I have about 15 or 16 minutes to go through this. And so I won't speed rap, but I'm going to be right in the neighborhood with speed rap on this one. I wanted to share with you today something that this last week to me brought me back to the way of Tao, brought me back to the universal way. I am unashamedly and unapologetically a student of the Tao Te Ching. You can read the Tao Te Ching 81 verses in an afternoon, but you can study it for a lifetime. And you'll get to the place when you're working with the Tao, and those of you who have approached about the Tao or shared the Tao Te Ching with, you'll know that I've said this to you. You'll read the Tao for a season, and then you'll find it reading you. In other words, you'll find it starting to really come out of you and read it out into the world. The Tao Te Ching is really heralded as the second best-selling spiritual book of all time, second only to the Bible. And the Bible still continues to be the best-selling book of all time for whoever's measuring that. But the Tao Te Ching was written by Lao Tzu during the warring states of China, and at least that's the legend. And it really was because he was leaving the warring states. He was done with all of the violence and the anger and the angst and the hatred and all of the things that were happening in the warring states. And so he decided, Lao Tzu decided he was going to go up into the mountains and just meditate for the rest of his life. And so before he left, one of the guards in the tower said, will you please leave your wisdom with us before you leave? If you're going, leave a piece of yourself with us. And so he left what became known as the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching. So I invite you to consider that if you've never read the book before. But as you decide to go on that journey, know this, it may take a moment because it's very dichotomous. It has a lot of paradoxical approach. And so it will throw you off. It's not your typical afternoon read. And it certainly is something that can radically change your life. So fair warning, if you start reading the Tao and you become a student of the Tao, it's going to change every way you operate in the world. So when I was thinking about the Tao way and how it relates to thriving in 2025, we've been talking about thriving in 2025, and this has been a refrain for me. This is a practice for me right now to really locate the truth of who I am. This is this part of a scripture that came to my mind, and I'm not sure why it did, but I'm going to go with it. Follow Spirit in this one. Today is the day of salvation. In some translations, it says today is your day of salvation. But the word salvation, as I've said to you before, is the word sozo, which means to be delivered or to be freed, to be given freedom. This is why Jesus said, the anointing is upon me to preach the gospel to the poor, to preach the opening of the eyes to the blind, the opening of the prison to those who are captives. He was talking about being somebody who was bringing forth a message that would rattle people out of their mental slavery, To be free in your mind is to be able to get out of the conning that has transpired from the society that you've grown up in, the people that have been around you, the people who influenced you the most, being able to free yourself really from the ego person, the personality that was built by others, the construct that has held you bound. And it's the conversation within our brains that goes on that we need to free ourselves from. Eckhart Tolle talks about freeing ourselves from the thinking mind. Will free us from the pain body. What we identify with is what we begin to play out in our life. So these are the three words that came from me. Today is the day of salvation. These three words: identify, diversify, and clarify. And the first one is this: I don't have to be anything at all. When I'm starting to get into identity and identifying who I am, I don't have to be anything at all. In fact, pat yourself on the chest and say, I don't have to be anything at all. Now, this one gets weird for most of us. I don't even have to be myself. Now, this gets a little strange because we're like, what do you mean I don't have to be myself? Because most of us have heard people say, come on, just be yourself. Everyone else is taken. I've said that. But think about it this way. I don't have to be anything at all. I can just be. I don't even have to be myself because there's no such thing as being myself. I am inescapably myself. When I'm saying I'm going to be myself, most of the time I'm saying that through the lens of who someone else or society has told me to be. Because you can just simply be. Look at your neighbor if you can find somebody to lock eyes with and say, just be. Now, we've heard this statement before, but I want us to really dig into this. As we start talking about thriving in 2025, really start understanding that there's no person or personality I have to be. I can let go of a have to life and get into a meant to life or a get to life. I don't have to be anything. So, in other words, when life outside of me tries to, or society tries to tag me with a particular definition, I don't have to live in the confines of how they define me. Because I've had a refinement of my true self. I have discovered, uncovered, and recovered who I truly am, and who I truly am, I don't have to try to become. It's about, well, I'll say this, letting go of all of those concepts. It's not about what I become, it's about what I let go of that isn't me that matters the most. This is all Jesus meant when he said, be born again so that you can see the kingdom of God. It's dropping off the filters through which we look. So when I identify, I realize I'm inescapably me. Boy, that word this morning wanted me to tongue tie. It was trying to ask me to be Pentecostal again. I'm inescapably me. So I don't have to try to be me. Let go of the trying. Pat yourself on the chest and say, baby, let go of the trying. Identifying yourself means truly seeing and understanding who you truly are. Not trying to construct it, but who you truly are. Who you are at your core. You are awareness itself, not the personality or the circumstances that you are aware of. Can you hear that again? You are awareness itself. Eckhart Tolle says it this way, I think I'm quoting him when I say this. I am the knowing, not the condition that I know about. I'm the knowing itself. I am the awareness behind the thinking and all of the constructs, and I now identify as my true self, without labels, without the roles. Doesn't mean I don't play them, but again, I'm not being played by them. So when you're sitting in that moment, meditation, quiet, stillness, recognizing the truth of the awareness, you are the awareness. Pay attention to how you see yourself. How you see yourself as you currently are, and how you see yourself in relation to the rest of the world. And notice those places where you experience emotional charge around how you're relating to the world. In other words, what do you expect other people to believe about you and say about you? Those expectations, when they fall away, we lose that judgment. We have no need anymore for someone else to affirm or confirm who we are. We start to show up as our true, authentic, essential, original, divine self. What face did you have before you were born? This is what the Zen Buddhists say. I want to be reminded of who I was, the face I wore before all of the masks that people put on, and the ones I chose to go ahead and wear around. Most of us are in a masquerade party all of the time, including with the people that we know the most, because we're afraid of they might not like who we are. They may not love us for our true self. Most of us live in fear, again, being imposters in our life, because we're afraid that if we identify as our true self, we might lose some level of reputation. Spiritual walk, to me, is about giving up your reputation so that you can locate your identity. So identify who you truly are. And then number two, and I think this is really important if we're thriving in 2025, diversify. Now, the word diversify can be used in business. I'm using it in terms of embracing diversity, not judging diversity. When you see diverse people, diverse cultures, diverse situations, not judging it, but appreciating it. I'll give you, for instance, the flowers that grow are multiple types and stripes and smells. Some of them smell good and some of them smell bad, but both of those are a judgment. I don't want a daisy to be a rose. I appreciate the difference. I don't want a tulip to be a, what's another flower? Somebody help me. A what? A geranium. Boy, that's one. I'm going to have to look up a geranium now. Thank you so much to the chaplain. It shows that she knows more about flowers than I do. But the different types that are out there, I don't want a tulip to become a geranium. I want the geranium to be itself. Does that make sense? The same is true in the world that we come in contact with. We have so many judgments about how other people are living their lives. So much so that we go to social media with it. We just can't stand it. We're preoccupied with whether someone's gay or straight or transgender or white or black. Or we tag people with so many different labels that we don't ever truly know who they are. Some of us have even worn those badges as a badge of honor. I am a white, middle-aged, straight male. I'm a man. Don't try to feminize me. Come on. Inside of you is both male and female. Inside of you is both the divine feminine and divine masculine. Within all of us is this wonderful circle dance and balance of both. And when we allow ourselves to stop judging it, it all just comes to the surface. I don't see people anymore. Less and less do I see people anymore based on their race, their orientation, their religion, their politics. I want to see the beauty of who you are in its diversity. When we choose to move into a place of identifying who we truly are, we can then appreciate the diversity of the world, the different cultures. When Carrie and I visit, we love to travel internationally. And when we visit other countries and cultures, we actually want to experience their culture. We want to get outside of the big cities that have been turned into tourist traps where they just do stuff the way we do it here in America. I want to get out past that. I want to go visit with the folks. When we went to Scotland and Ireland, I was like, look, I just want to go to some tavern out in the middle of nowhere that's got grass growing on the roof and on the walls, like one of those places where you go in and somebody who had a bad day today stands up with a pint and starts singing a song about so-and-so broke up with me and I've had a rough day. I wanted to go experience the culture of the people and be in that space. The same is true with visiting Canada or visiting Africa or any other country. Now, I know that the cultures that they've built it's not the truth, but it's the world that they've built. But I want to experience it because I appreciate the diversity. Look at the different types and stripes of dogs and cats and other animal life and insects. This is the beauty of diversity. And when we can live from our true self, we appreciate it instead of judging it. Well, I think it was Wayne Dyer who said, the difference between a weed and a flower is a judgment. And how can I release that? And I have an appreciation for both. So consider nature when you're thinking about diversifying. And I encourage us to diversify our lives. Instead of just saying, I have a black friend, Actually cultivate a friendship with someone who is from that understanding so that they can share with you the human and psychological side of what they have experienced. Knowing the whole time that that's not the true them, but what they're experiencing on a human and a psychological level is those things. And I want to know more about where you're coming from. I may not be able to empathize, but I certainly want to be able to sympathize with how you've experienced life so far. And then walking together toward ultimate freedom, which doesn't align with any of those cultural tags. It transcends it all. But there's a certain level of unity. Many of us think that spirituality means we're supposed to not be on this earth. We're here on this earth. I don't know if you've noticed, but we're here on this earth, which means we should take the curriculum and be here with nature. In fact, we should learn from nature. Jesus said it. Siddhartha Buddha said it. I love J. Philip Newell, who wrote a book about the Christ of the Celts, and he talks about the Celtic understanding of the natural life and the flow of life. Reverend Aileen is our own residential expert in Celtic beliefs and ideas, and much of your influence, I think, growing up was a Celt. She was a pagan. Isn't that what they called us? Anybody who's Celtic, you were pagan because you were too busy thinking about the earth and you should serve the Creator more than the creation. Well, you weren't serving the creation, but you were following its leading and guiding. There was a lady who told a story to J. Philip Newell that she went to a church and she was a member of that church and she went every single week. She was giving to it. She was a part of it. And she said one day during service, a dog walked in, walked right down the middle aisle, sniffed around the altar and turned around and left. And she said, that was the last day I went to that church. She said, whatever that dog smelled, it wasn't that great. So I decided I would follow this dog. And she said, and people dogged me out for it. But she said that dog sensed something that I wasn't sensing, and so she followed nature. But Jesus said this, consider the lilies of the field, consider the birds, consider the animals, watch how they're responding and how they're migrating and acting, and you might find some wonderful wisdom in there. In fact, from dogs we would find tremendous wisdom because they are so forgiving and so loving unconditionally. So consider diversifying your life. If you don't know somebody, I'm speaking to straight folks now. If you don't know somebody who is gay, get to know them instead of your judgments about them. Get to know them. When I was growing up, I probably knew some gay people, but I didn't know it. Because in the church, you could be gay, don't do gay. Be quiet about it. Or you needed deliverance. And when I first had the opportunity to meet people who were, all of the things that had been pumped into my life and into my brain, the filters around them, I was so nervous. The first time I got invited to go minister in a predominantly gay and lesbian transgender church, I literally called other ministers and asked, what do I do? I've been invited, what do I do? And one of them said, well, they better not invite me because I'll tell them exactly what they need to know. And the other minister said, I ask you this, what would you do different there than you would at another church? And why are you judging it? That rattled my cage. And I went and I had an experience that was beautiful, and I was nervous the whole time, like maybe they're going to turn me gay or something. Is this too honest for everybody? This was over 20 years ago. This is 25 years ago for me because of the way I had been taught. And those folks are still great friends of mine to this day. And their loving awareness and a greater understanding, and it broadened my understanding. This is what I mean by diversify. Some of you Republicans should spend a little time with some Democrats, and some of you Democrats should spend a little time with Republicans and actually have a conversation. We've been conned into believing that we're so different by those who are in authority, who love to stir that pot and keep us divided. Get to know somebody. Get to know somebody. Diversify. Okay, enough of that. The last, clarify. After you have chosen to really show up as your true and authentic self, and you have diversified your life so that your psychology and your physiology, your human experience, can experience a higher level of openness, as is called by Eckhart, spaciousness. After you've done that, then clarify who it is you want to show up as and how you want to play out this life. Through diversification, you begin to clarify who you really want to be. Because the truth is that your true self will always be in that background, the one who has the authority to decide what role you're going to play. But if you don't want to play the role of a villain, then write yourself in the role of a hero. Write yourself into the role that you want to play. Dr. King chose to show up in the world, even unto death, as love, as peace, as equity and equality, and a better way of leaving the world. He chose not to just withdraw from the world, but to invest and deposit into the world. And who is it that you're wanting to show up as? Clarify that for your life. Clarifying just means making things less confusing and easier to understand. Maybe your life is perfect just the way it is right now. Maybe this message is nothing but an affirmation of what you're already doing. But I'm encouraging you in the places in your life where there doesn't seem to be clarity. Stay on the road. Don't give up. Stay on the road. I thought this was interesting, and we're coming close to closing. In baking, clarifying, those of you who bake know this, clarifying is applying heat to the butter so that it separates the water from the milk solids. You can't see through a stick of butter. But if you melt it, you put enough heat on it and you separate the two, now all of a sudden you can see through. You can see through because you can see through the water side. In your life, the heat that's on in your life, it's not here to kill you. It's here to reveal you. It's here to clarify for you. And so allow that heat to be applied to your life. Allow yourself to be in the present moment. Allow yourself to let go of thoughts and belief systems, especially the ones that don't align with unity, love, joy, and peace. These are beautiful high vibrations. Get really clear about who you want to be in this life journey. Because how you want to show up, it's very clear to all of us. Can I say that without everybody being offended? It's clear to all of us. How many of you can watch the world around us and see clearly who some folks have decided to show up as? You know there's a divine in there, but you see how they've decided to show up. And the invitation is to show up at a higher level, is to show up as love, joy, and peace. You can do it, but it will require, the ego doesn't want you to do it, it will require being able to become very conscious and make it a habit. Saw this conversation between Oprah and Eckhart Tolle. And she was talking about a new earth, and it was the 20th anniversary or something of New Earth, Eckhart's book. And they were talking about consciousness and how when you practice being conscious, being awake, it becomes, there becomes less time between the ego's losing its mind and doing crazy stuff and you recognizing it. And she was talking about narrowing that gap. And she had a great example. She said, yeah, just like 2 weeks ago. And she said, I know this is me outing myself. But just like 2 weeks ago, she said, I'm Oprah Winfrey. So when I go to the doctor, they always take me around to the back. They get me right in. I don't have to wait. And I do the thing and I'm out. So she said, I went for a mammogram and they dropped me off at the front door. I went into the main lobby with a bunch of other people. I signed in like everybody else and I'm sitting there going, okay, this is different. I'm Oprah Winfrey. But this is different. This hasn't happened before. And as she sat there in the waiting room, 10 minutes goes by. 15 minutes goes by, 20 minutes goes by, 30 minutes goes by, and she's like, what is going on? So she gets on her phone with her assistant and she says, can you tell me what's going on here? I don't normally have to wait this long for seeing the doctor. What's happening here? My appointment was 11 o'clock. It's 11:35. What's going on here? She said, and in the middle of my conversation with my assistant, in my spirit self, I said, oh, there she is. There's the ego who needs to be pushed to the front of the line, who needs to be snuck in the back because I'm Oprah Winfrey. And Eckhart just smiled, kind of leaned back in his chair. What a great example. And he said to her, he said, yes, but the beauty is Consciousness had been practiced enough that you noticed it in the middle of a conversation instead of 20 days later or 20 hours later or 20 minutes later, you noticed it. She said, I did because I said to my assistant, oh, I am so in my ego right now, girl. I'm sorry I yelled at you. I'll let you go. And she said, I went back to the waiting room, and now I started meeting people in the waiting room instead. It's a testimony that when we practice consciousness, it may take some time, but as you practice it, you start to notice it. I begin to notice it in traffic. I didn't used to. I notice it in traffic now when stuff's not going my way. And you know, we all know sign language that we probably shouldn't be. And even if we don't, you know, I got to this place where I was working with my ego so well, and instead of the sign language being out the window, the sign language was just inside the car. Does that make sense with anybody? I'm working on that as I clarify this journey. And I want to thrive in 2025 and be able to notice it when it starts to happen. In my discussions, I told you that Carrie and I don't fight, but we have had close, intense moments of fellowship. And being able to notice in those conversations when my ego wants to be right. And being able to let go of the need to be right. It's a beautiful thing. It's a dance, and it's an ebb and flow. Lastly, and all of you know this is where I go at pretty much the end of every talk. Reflect on love. What would love do here? The ultimate ingredient for flowing in the way of pure presence, which is the universal way, as we're talking about today. Tao, the universe, you guessed it, love. And Jason Mraz wrote this in one of his songs. And at first when I heard it, I was like, I don't know if I like that. And then I listened to it more, and I liked it. He said, love is a gateway drug, and the gate's unlocked for us. Love is a wonder drug, and it grows wild, wild, wild. Let love be the gateway into your higher consciousness, and then let it be the guide as you flow more and more in that consciousness. 1 Corinthians 13, 9 through 13 says this. It's my own translation. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, or you could say preach in part or make our declaration in part. But then that which is perfect or complete has come. That which is in part will go away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child or immaturely. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became an adult, mature, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly or with blurred vision, but then face-to-face clarity. Now I know in part, but then I shall know. Be conscious, just as I am also known. Or in other words, the face I had before I was born. And now, faith, hope, and love abide, these three together. But the greatest of these is love. So as we go throughout this year, I'm asking us to consider identifying, diversifying, and clarifying the life that we're living. Identify who it is you want to show up as. Use diversity as a backdrop for that. And then clarify your journey, allowing your vision to become more and more clear, because today is the day of salvation. Sozo, rescue, deliverance, freedom, clarification. Yummy. And so it is. Everybody joining us online, we want to say that we thank you for being here today and being a part of this community. Everybody who is here in the congregation, thank you for being here and being a part of this community. I love you so much. Reverend Carrie Bell is coming now to share with us some announcements. And I just say, it is an honor, it is my life's honor to serve with all of you.
Good morning, family. So I wore my sparkly shirt for y'all so I could be like sunshine reflecting on a cloudy day. I've got sunshine, you know. Okay, just a couple announcements for you guys. Our Thursday evening meditation this week is led by Christopher Salomon. We all know him as Sal, and that is going to be here in the sanctuary Thursday at 6 p.m. I just want to remind everyone we do have a prayer box. If you have something on your heart or something you'd like to share with our spiritual support team, our prayer box is located in our lobby. It's going to be to the right side of the lobby, off to the side. You're welcome to put a prayer in there if you'd like, and our spiritual support team will pray with you. So our Oneness team and Reverend John are marching in the Martin Luther King Jr. Parade tomorrow at 11 a.m. Just want you guys to know the weather is not supposed to be rainy. Hallelujah. Yes. So lineup is at 8:30 a.m. If you are interested in being a part of this with our team, I do have more information in the lobby for you. There's a map and information on where you need to park and meet up at 8:30 a.m., but we'd love for you guys to join us. Speaking of our Oneness and Social Justice team, as you can see, they are getting involved in a lot of community things. They're going to have another meeting on Thursday, January 23rd at 7 p.m. in our hall. They're going to give fast updates. They're going to continue to develop our community food bank. That's something they're very passionate about. So if you're interested, you could register in the lobby. I'll be there as well to answer any questions you have. We are still in our membership drive for January. I want to thank everyone who are members and who have recently joined. But if you are considering this as your spiritual home, I do ask you to consider becoming a member. It's very easy to do. You just go to firstunity.org. There is a tab on the top, or if you're on a mobile device, you click the 3 lines and it says become a member. Just a couple quick steps and you would be part of our membership team. So we'd love for you to join us. If you have not received any of our newsletters, we send out a weekly connection every Monday, and we have a monthly newsletter that goes out at the first of the month. Please see me in the lobby. We are making sure that everyone is up to date in the system as far as the correct email. I did have a list printed out. There are about 77 people who have opted out previously, which means our system will no longer send you emails. So if you're not getting those emails and you believe you've registered, please see me. We can do what we can to get that corrected within the guidelines. I think that's about it, guys. Visit firstunity.org if you have any questions on what goes on a monthly basis. I love you guys.
Carrie, thank you, Carrie. Also, special thank you to Emmanuel Arana today for sharing his gift of music with us. Thank you to our AV booth, Brandon and Gavin, always making sure things are going well. Thank you so much. Something that I want to do a little different today is that we're going to talk about our giving, and then I'm going to make my way toward the end of the sanctuary because I'd actually love to hug your necks as you start to leave, and have not been doing that. I'd like to at least be able to see your smiling face more than just sitting here on the way out. But the ways to give are going up on the screen now, and I want to say thank you for being a sustaining partner. Thank you for being somebody who has chosen this place to be where you invest. You are investing. You're not just giving away something. You're actually investing not only for you to eat at this table, but for others who come along later and currently to be able to eat at this table and have their souls nurtured. So thank you for providing that experience for yourself and for others. As you give, you can do that with by texting to give. You can, of course, go to our First Unity app. If you don't have that, you can download that in the App Store or in the Google Play Store. You can go, the third way to give